Hi, so it's Kate Delaney here from Hypnosis Helps, and today I thought I'd just talk to you a little bit about hypnosis and what it is and how it works. So a lot of the time, I tell people I'm a hypnotherapist and they look at me slightly alarmed, often take a step back and change the subjects. And that's sadly because a lot of the stuff we see on TV about hypnosis is just really misleading, whether you watch programmes like Back in the Room or anything with Paul McKenna. Great stuff, good entertainment, but it doesn't really convey what hypnosis is as a therapy and how people like myself use it in a clinical context day after day. So the majority of the time I work with cases of depression, anxiety, panic attacks. I help people quit smoking or overcome a fear or phobia. And that's just part of the job. It depends, depending on the issue, as to how long the treatment is. It can take one session if it's something very simple like a quit smoking, or it can take up to 10 sessions if it's something quite complex like a severe phobia which has affected many aspects of someone's life. And I think what's really important for people to understand is what hypnosis actually is as opposed to what you see. So that's what I'm going to try and explain today. So the first thing to know about hypnosis is that we all go into a state of hypnosis many times a day. It's a completely natural state. It's a trance state, essentially. So you've probably had the experience of when you've been sitting in the car, perhaps driving through towns, villages, and really can't remember where you've been through. It's just a bit of a blur, and you've essentially gone into a trance. The brain gets a little bit bored. You may have the same thing when you've been watching TV for a while. You can't even remember what you've been watching, or perhaps even reading a book and you've been looking over the words but haven't actually been taking it in. And they're all just different variations on a theme of a trance. And we see children go into a trance an awful lot, daydreaming, same thing. So the first kind of myth to break essentially is that hypnosis is a trance, and a trance is a natural state. It's a natural state that we all go into. Obviously in this slightly overstimulated world, we're not in a trance state as often as possibly we should be, but it is a natural state, and hypnosis is essentially a way of encouraging the mind to enter that trance state a little bit more quickly. So the way we essentially use a trance state is that when we are in a trance, our mind becomes a little bit more suggestible. And what we mean by that is that if you make suggestions to the unconscious mind when you're in that trance state, the unconscious mind will listen without obstruction. So whilst I couldn't suggest something absurd, unless you particularly wanted to do it, I could suggest, for example, that smoking, if you were a smoker, would suddenly become really quite disgusting to you. Now, doing that in a trance state, it essentially goes into a much deeper part of the mind, and the mind listens to that and actually remembers that message the next time you go to light up a cigarette. So it's essentially just knowing that this part of the mind it's there. It's a very powerful part of our mind. In fact, it's the largest part of our mind, the unconscious, and it's listening. And we, in hypnosis, essentially use the trance state to access that part of the mind and help you make whatever change in your life it is you want to make. So it may be quit smoking, or it may be something more complex. Perhaps it's more confidence to improve your self-esteem. Perhaps you have a meeting, a public speaking event, and you just want to be your best self without nerves or anxiety. And again, using hypnosis, we can communicate with that part of the mind and just tell it how we want it to be, how we want to perform, the results that we want. And the actual process of hypnosis is really gentle and relaxing. So if you've ever had any experience of meditation, it's extremely similar to that. If you've ever done yoga, the shavasana at the end of the yoga session, again, extremely similar. It's a sense of guiding your body into relaxation, quietening the mind, and then using a gentle talking voice to essentially communicate with that part of the mind. So the way we access a trance state, or we speed up accessing a trance state in a hypnosis session, is to use a variety of techniques. And I generally switch and change the technique depending on the person and what I feel that they might enjoy or like. In the old days, they used to use a pendulum, and I'm sure you've seen the traditional kind of image of hypnosis with someone swinging a pendulum. I never do that. It doesn't really matter what technique you use, but I find that's a little bit old-fashioned. But there are various other things that we can use to induce that trance state, and we call these things inductions. So sometimes I will ask someone just to stare at a point for a long time, and after they've been staring at that point for a few minutes, they will find that their eyes start to get really quite tired, and we then essentially encourage that relaxation in the eyelids then to just flow down through the whole body. Another type of relaxation is called progressive muscle relaxation, another type of induction. And you can do this yourself. You just simply go through your body, essentially a body scan starting at the top of your head, and just focusing on, for example, your forehead, scrunching it up, feeling all the tension, and then releasing and letting go. And then just allow that to go down through every part of your face. So doing the same with your eyes, scrunching up, feeling all that tension, and then releasing, letting go. And then continue to do that through your whole face, your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your fists, down through your stomach, your chest, down towards your legs, right the way down towards the bottom of your legs, to your feet, your calves, right the way down to your toes. And that process, again, it just accelerates the trance state. So it gets us to the point at which we can do some work with suggestion, which is where we actually make those changes, help you to achieve those goals that you want to achieve in your life. So that's essentially how we work. After we've used an induction, we go into the main part of the hypnosis session, and I will direct that session on the basis of what you've told me. So if, for example, you've come to me and you no longer want to be afraid of spiders, I will start making suggestions to help you see spiders differently, to release those feelings of fear. And we sometimes use what we call metaphors for doing that. So in hypnosis, metaphors, we will use them essentially to kind of reframe something like a spider, to see it for what it really is. It's a very small, harmless insect in most cases, rather than something that is disproportionately terrifying. And so we use that with some direct suggestion as well. So I would literally very simply say to you, if you're in a deep trance, that from this point forward, spiders will no longer be scary for you, that actually you will feel quite indifferent towards them. And that's a really nice place to be. And then after that, we would then do essentially a count back up to the room. I would count from 1 to 10 just to bring you back to full awareness so that you can continue your day feeling very awake and alert, but with that real sense that something's changed, that you've made a really positive difference. So that's the essence of a hypnotherapy session. Quite often we use a relaxing place, and this can be a little bit of a resource as we work together. So I will normally ask my clients to think of a special place, somewhere they've been before, or perhaps somewhere they'd like to go, or somewhere that just exists in their imagination. I've been working with a little boy lately who likes to be up in outer space, but often it's beach. It's there with the waves crashing in, and that lovely sort of sea smell and the soft sand underneath your toes and all of that. But it can be unique to you, and the wonderful thing about using that special place is when you're in hypnosis, you visualise things so much more clearly than you would do normally. So you can really experience that place, you can really feel it. And I often hear people say to me afterwards that they actually feel like they've had a little mini break. They've been somewhere absolutely beautiful and just received all the resources they needed in that moment and just had a moment of calm. And we use this in the hypnosis, sometimes just as a place to go to reflect, to get a bit of a sense of perspective on whatever issue it is that you're wanting to address. And sometimes in this place, we can also find answers. So a little bit like when you're on holiday, standing on top of a mountain, and suddenly everything in your life just becomes much clearer. And it's the same in hypnosis, that when we're in that place, in our imagination, and we're really experiencing it and seeing it clearly, suddenly things can just fall into a natural order, and we see things for how they really are. So I hope that's enlightened you a little bit as to what hypnosis is, how I work with it. I do see a huge variety of different cases. I work with children to end-of-life care, and also many professionals helping them with business performance. If you have any questions, please drop me an email or ping me a message, and I look forward to getting back to you soon with some more tips.